Hello and welcome to the Brothers in Influence podcast, where we stand to encourage, inspire, and add value to Black men in the areas of life, leadership, and community. We consist of five brothers discussing relevant topics with candor and care. Thank you for tuning in. Let's go. Thank you. Yes, welcome to the Brothers in Influence podcast. My name is Ian Williams. I am your purpose coach. You can find me on Twitter at SonofTheKing02, and you can find my family and I, the home team, on Instagram at Team Reconcile. And without further ado, I want to give two of the five brothers that happen to be on here with me today an opportunity to introduce themselves. All right, put your hands together, people.
Shawty Price here again. You can find me on all social media networks. Website coming soon. I'm your leadership and financial coach, Lorenzo.
What's up, family? I am Lorenzo Daughtry Chambers, www.winwithlorenzo.com. I help businesses, organizations, ministries, and leaders win. And I think all of us can win because we all have a different game. So I'm just happy to be here. Welcome to the Brothers and Influence podcast.
Yeah, let's go. What is it? You help them win?
Win. I help people win.
Yes, sir.
Win. And the thing is, Ian, is that everybody can win because everybody's game is different. So I'm getting us out of this competition mode and saying that we all can win collectively. And it's a powerful thing. I'm seeing people transform themselves when they get out of the competition with others and into a zone with themselves where it's just about what is your thing and how are you going to get to where you need to be.
Yes,
exactly. Sir. It reminds me of a saying I heard that, the only real competition you have is you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Come on.
Yeah, that's your greatest. That's your greatest out of any competition that. If you're launching a business, family is you, because I remember I had wrote something and pretty much it was saying how, and pretty much that's what I was saying. The greatest enemy you have is the one looking at you in the mirror. You know what I'm saying?
There's a rapper, Shawty, I don't know. He says it like my greatest enemy is my inner me. Yeah. I want to say it's like Jay-Z or Nas or somebody, but yeah, for sure. And once we get out of our own way, it's like, okay, the pathway is clear. I've created a clearing to win. What is my goal? If I meet my goals, if I get to my objective and the finish line, that's a win, right? And the thing is, we have so many quick wins in front of us that we miss because we're not thinking about it, or we're not present to it, or we don't have somebody helping us or coaching us or being with us. So yeah,
right. And just to set the record straight, in case you didn't know, when you rock out with the Brothers in Influence podcast, that's what you start to get W's. You start to win.
Yes, sir.
Leadership and community. That's what we're all about, because we are here to encourage, inspire, and add value. And as we get into today's topic, I think that's a perfect segue. What are we talking about, fellas?
Mental health.
We're talking about mental health. Yes, I have a simple question for you. Sorry, Shawty, I know you're about to chime in there. I just have a simple question. I think it's a question that when it's asked genuinely, right? When it's not just one of those just passing in the hall, it's like, hey, how you doing? But not really not wanting to know how you doing. That's the question. It's just simply, it says, you good, bro? You all right? You all right? So that's why we're talking about mental health. It is actually National Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yes, sir.
Give thanks.
We are not only here to highlight, but we are here. As I would describe myself as a mental health champion. I am not licensed. We are not licensed. Okay. But we are advocates of mental health wellness. And it is part of our mission to end the stigma, as we are helping you win in the areas of life, leadership, and community. This is an essential ingredient, right? This is an essential ingredient, and I think, and I hope that by the time that we end this conversation, because most people feel like this is outside of the realm of their experience,
Mm.
but honestly, mental health is really a part of your everyday life, and I hope you understand that. And I hope there are some extremes, and we don't want you to feel like that you need to feel those to qualify or to understand or to empathize uh, with what we're talking about. But what we're saying is your emotional well-being and your psychological well-being is important, right? And you don't have to be impaired or broken down in order to work on it, right?
Yes.
And it's a part of everything we've talked about so far, from self-leadership to significance, uh, because it only becomes more and more important as as we've already said that the greatest enemy is yourself. Is that what you said, Shate?
Yes.
Right? And so this is a part of that battle. And if you don't realize that, you're going to be behind the curve. So this is where we're
Yes,
going.
sir.
Asking the simple question: You good, bruh? You okay? Shante, what you got?
I think it's really important, and it's part. I believe this is part of why we're here. Is the importance of realizing how it's really normal,
Hmm.
especially in our community. We see, mental health or seeing a psychologist or any of that as taboo, and I don't need this, I don't need that. But one thing I realized just within the bigger framework of it is it's a natural occurrence. It happens every day. If you have a group of people that love you, that you communicate with regular, oftentimes in some of the conversations you have, those situations transpire. They're not professionals, just like we said, but they help us get over humps oftentimes. Uh, and when I realized how important those individuals is, like you guys and other individuals I associate myself with, uh, I was able to say, okay, you know what? I might need that. I might, because they may have been through some of the stuff I've been through, but does that necessarily mean that they've dealt with it? Because a lot of times, and we talked in one of the episodes how we bury stuff.
Yeah.
We think we've dealt with it, but it's buried until something triggers us, and then all what breaks loose, right? And then everybody's running around like, man, what happened to brother Shante? What's wrong with him? You know, what did he do? Right. So that's kind of my foray into it, just realizing how natural it was and how it isn't. It can be a great thing if you take that leap and just talk to someone. It doesn't have to be something you do for the rest of your life,
Hmm.
but it starts somewhere with making that decision and saying, whether you think you need it or not, just take that time out and do that, because it isn't just about you neither. It's about you and your loved ones.
That's right. Legacy. We talked about that too, right?
Yeah.
What kind of impact we want to make? When you ask that question, your mental wellness is extremely important. Extremely important. And as Shante was talking there, thank you. First of all, thank you, brother, for sharing that. I really felt led to talk about stigma. Like when we say we want to end the stigma, what do we mean? As you use a word, a term, just simply by saying that it was natural. It's a natural part of everyday life. Our mental health and wellness, just like our physical health and wellness, is a part of our life, whether we're doing something about it or not. The thing about it is we can physically see the consequences of not doing anything about that, right?
Yes.
We can see with our eyeballs. And the thing about mental health is you can, if you start to pay attention to it, if you become aware of it, you can begin to see the effects of it as well. And not only that, you can begin to see how it affects others, because just as Shante mentioned, a lot of the support we get from our circle, our support system, which is also vitally important. Who you surround yourself with, who you're connected to, who you can lean into to really kind of have some hard conversations. Who can you talk to that will tell you you need to go to talk to someone, and that you'll listen, right? But ultimately, when I say stigma, I just want to define that stigma is the idea of that you're marked by a disgrace. It's associated with something that is disgraceful.
Mm.
Mental health is not disgraceful. Your mental health is not disgraceful. All right, whether you're up and you're doing well, or whether you're falling short in the area and you're struggling, your mental health is not disgraceful. And I really want to just speak. I want to declare freedom for anyone that's listening that has felt that way. One, um, and I want to rebuke any voice that remained in your head, in your ear, that has continued to tell you that you had failed for some reason because you weren't mentally well. I mean, we get physically sick, we go to the doctor, we go look in the medicine aisle for something to help us feel better, right? Well, your mental health needs maintained, and it's something that is our God given responsibility, really, to maintain. So, what we got to do, what we got to do, right? Lorenzo, I think you was going to say something.
You know, one of the things that I'm struck by, Ian, as we have this conversation, I went to mentalhealth.gov to look at, what is mental health? Because as you talk about the stigma around mental health, a part of the reason maybe there's a stigma is because it's so misunderstood.
For sure.
Right. If people don't know what it is and we're making up definitions, then all sorts of ideations and things begin to occur. So in our preparation for the session, we did some research, and also I have to put a plug in here that Ian is being very modest, but one of Ian's focus points in his coaching, Ian's wife, Erlia, is also certified, trained as a counselor. Their business centers around aspect and idea of mental health. And so while Ian is being modest and he's creating the distinction between life coaching and mental health, there's also a weight in what he's sharing with us today. He's speaking from a place of authority. And I just wanted to put that in there because it is the work that he's done in this space is really powerful. Him and his wife and his family together. And so as we look at mentalhealth.gov, it says that mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. Over the course of your life, if you experience mental health problems, your thinking, mood, and behavior could be affected. Many factors contribute to mental health problems, including biological factors, such as genes or brain chemistry, life experiences, such as trauma or abuse, family history, or other mental problems. Here's what I love about this. Mental health problems are common, but help is available. People with mental health problems can get better, and many recover completely. So, Ian, as you were talking about the stigma of mental health, that's what stuck out to me, is because people don't have a clear definition, because people don't understand, like you're saying, that it's common, because people don't know how it happens. It could be something biological.
Yeah.
And there's this negative stigma and a shame around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But really, it's I think it's only become more and more important, right? As our access to information has increased, our exposure has also increased. And so we're dealing with things, and we're working in an economy, having, I don't mean to get too deep, but transitioning from the industrial age where we were all in manufacturing, it was all mostly physically taxing, to now we are in an information and knowledge age that really not only taxes us physically, but also mentally and emotionally as well. Our leader, the responsibility on our leaders is even greater. It's really easy to just fall into managing processes and procedures, but the call of a leader is greater than that. And when you're involved with the individuals that you're leading, where you're building relationship, you're building trust, then you're not only responsible for your own mental wellness, but you're going to be exposed to theirs as well.
Yeah.
And so there are things that you may not have ever faced before that you're exposed to just by simply being a people leader.
Wow.
And you're and any deficiencies that you face in the areas of mental wellness will impair you in how you lead others well.
Yeah. So I was think I'm gonna kind of jump ahead a little bit, but one thing I wish I had known is that it doesn't mean you have a problem. I think that's one of the key things that when most people think about mental health, the first thing they go to is the person they seen go crazy, what they would say, right? Yeah. Or have a mental breakdown or what have you. And that's one of the key things I wish I had known before, that it isn't about that type of situation arising. That isn't what it's about. That can be what it's about, but it's not what it's about. The foundation of it is just like you said, you good, bro? That's really the foundation. It's about, are you good?
Right.
And looking at it broader is not only are you good, but how can I help you cope? Or if you're dealing with a situation, how can I help you navigate it? Because a lot of times situations arise because we don't know how to navigate.
That's good.
And I'll just, myself, I didn't grow up with my father. So that alone has caused issues for me, because I didn't have that father figure. I didn't have that male figure that helped me navigate this life so that I could be able to deal with issues that arise in my life. So that alone can be a good reason to talk to someone. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean you're nuts. It doesn't mean they're going to send you to an institution. It just means that I might need guidance. I might need help. Right. I might need perspective.
That's good. Perspective.
So that's one of the key things for me, man. And now that I know, though, I know it's not that. And it's real personal for me, because my mother, she's dealt with mental issues for years. And so growing up as a kid, I'm pretty sure you can imagine what type of effect that had on a child. Because just like I said, what I didn't know before, all you think of is that extreme. And I think Ian mentioned it earlier about the extremes or not. And that's the only idea I had about that extreme with mental health and things like that. And so it was just a struggle, just seeing my mother go through what she was going through. Mm-hmm. But then when she got help, the balance came, right? The balance came and then she was able to deal with her issues. So I just, like I said, I just really think that the conversation is important just on the foundational level to really understand what it is versus what it isn't. Right. Because when you talk to a lot of people, that's the first avenues they go to, what they think it is. And most of the time it's the extreme.
Bro, no, yeah, you telling the truth right now. And really a couple things come to mind for me, man. I think I know that there's a couple verses in Galatians, I believe it's 5, and Lorenzo, you can help me out with this. It talks about burden bearing. And how we're all called to bear burdens. One of the things that I've discovered in my faith journey is that burden bearing is not a natural thing, right? Burden bearing does not mean that it's your that you take on the responsibility of fixing a situation for somebody else. And I hope that frees someone up, because burden bearing is uncomfortable, and the person hearing what's being shared tries to cope with that discomfort by trying to fix a problem. But really, what they end up doing is often hurting more than helping.
Mm.
They often end up hurting more than helping. And so, what I hear as you were talking, Shante, again, thank you for sharing, brother. Is that we're challenging each other. We're challenging those of you that are listening to raise the level of your brotherhood. This is the brotherhood, the Brothers in Influence podcast. We are going to challenge you to raise the level of brotherhood. You know, one of the questions that came to me is once you've heard someone's story or they're telling you something that they're going through, what do you say? One of the worst things you can say, and this is something Lorenzo shouted me and my wife out. We teach one of the worst things you can do is respond with an "at least." Right? One of the experiences that we've had is that we actually lost a child before we had Junior. We lost our first child, and I think a lot of moms that have had that experience will tell you that's probably one of the worst. Like, they don't want to hear nothing from nobody because everybody got something to say. At least you can have children. But that means nothing to me right now. Oh, you tried to fix it, right? Like, what is that? We say you tried. ... You tried. But really, what really should happen, or what I want to encourage you is, next time you hear a story, or next time you're hearing a testimony, or next time you're hearing, you're privileged to hear something that's going on in your brother or sister's life. Follow that up with asking them how they are coping. I'm gonna let that breathe for a minute. Ask them how they are coping. Ask them how you can be of support. And this is what's going to happen. First of all, they're probably going to be surprised because nobody's ever asked them that before. You have to genuinely care to be interested enough to ask that question and really hope for an honest answer. And then sit and listen. It's a simple recipe. No fixing. You ain't got the tools. You ain't got to pull out your tool belt. And they're not a project that you're working on. Sit and listen.
Because we listen to try to speak, Ian.
Yep. Come on.
God, Jesus.
That's actually a pet peeve of mine. I can't. People try to, like you said, they listen to speak instead of listening to hear.
And what does that do? One thing it does is, because I like to say we have to be active listeners. So if I'm an active listener, and of course I failed at this, that's why I can say this. Now, wife says, starts talking about something, I'm watching TV. I'm study watching TV, but I'm saying, okay, I'm listening. But no, because in reality, you can't walk and chew gum. That's what people quick to say. I can't walk and chew gum. You can't watch TV and listen to your wife. You can't watch TV and listen to your kid. You can't have your phone in your hand, because you have to give a person your undivided attention so that you're getting all, or you're receiving all the information. Because if I'm watching TV, I'm not receiving all the information. My wife is saying she's saying I hurt her for something, but all I hear her saying is she's mad because I'm listening to this TV show that's talking about something totally different, and I'm trying to do two things at once. It don't work like that. But if I give her my undivided attention, she's not going to be mad at me, because I'm going to hear what she says, and then I'm able to engage in the conversation so that we can get somewhere. We can see if I'm wrong, she's right, or what have you. And so I like the idea of active listening. Active listening is giving someone your undivided attention in the conversation so that you're able to get it, and not listening to the first thing they say and saying, okay, I know how I'm going to combat that. Because the moment you start doing that, the line of communication is automatically broken. It just is.
I had to drop a bomb on that one. When you drop this out here. Seriously, go ahead, Lorenzo. I'm chiming in after that.
You know, what came to mind too, Shante, you're so on it. Recently in conversations, I've actually started to keep a notebook in quote unquote contentious conversations, because our natural tendency is to latch on to the first thing the person says. And so we've probably missed the most important thing. So watch this. If we're doing a list, probably the last things on the list are actually the most important. After you've exhausted everything on the list, the probably last 2 or 3 pieces are probably the most important pieces. So we often miss those. And then the other thing I was hearing, which I wanted to bring out in what you said, is what I'm hearing you say is you're listening to hear what your wife or the other person is saying, but also you're listening to hear what they're not saying. You're listening to interpret the body language and the intonation and everything about this communication that's being delivered to you. You're treating it with a respect and a reverence, because you're looking to move the relationship forward. That's something that really stuck out to me.
That's good. And I think it's a good time to give you a shout out, Coach Lorenzo. I say I've told you before, I think you're one of the better listeners that I know, and I know some good ones. I mean, I think the 3 of us on this call are pretty good. But I love it when because you're a busy guy, but when you jump on and you just you make it known. He's like, I just want to be present.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know how that lands with anybody else, but it definitely lands with me. And I don't know. I can tell you, having had similar experiences, Shante, how powerful that can be. When you can pause whatever you're doing, particularly being a task-oriented individual. And what I do is I tend to take hold of my wife's hand with my left, and then put my right hand over top, and I say, I just want to be present. Whether I say it vocally, I say it physically. And I turn towards her. And you talked about body language, Lorenzo. That's extremely important, right? By just squaring my shoulders up to her, I'm communicating that I'm present. I'm looking her in her eyes. I'm not listening to anything else. And it's something I'm training myself to do. Is I'm not perfect, right? But I'm training myself to do this because I also know that my mind can wander. So it's not just the TV that's a distraction.
Ooh.
But I have to self-lead. I have to self-regulate, right?
God, Jesus. So first, thank you, Ian, for that acknowledgement. I'm deeply moved by it, almost to the point of tears, because that is my heart, to be present. And even that goes back to something Shante was talking about earlier around like the relationship with our fathers, right? So my father was not necessarily in the picture. In my latter years, I've made a concerted effort for our relationship to develop, and by the grace of God, it's developed tremendously. But being present is something that's huge for me. For my grandfather also. So thank you for that. That piece that you shared about squaring the shoulders, that's straight masterclass stuff right there, though. And for communicators, in fact, that's something new for me, right? It's intuitive, but I think spelling that out is so powerful for our listeners and viewing audience, that if you are looking to make a breakthrough in communication in your relationships, whatever relationship it is, squaring your shoulders is a way for nonverbal body language communication, right? Doing different things with your tone, really listening, are tools that are being pulled out of this conversation from these coaches and these leaders. So I want to encourage you, maybe you've been having some difficulty in communication. Take on some of these subtle nuances and see if there's any impact.
Absolutely. And if you've been rocking with us here for the first 30 minutes or so, you know that it's hashtag Mental Health Awareness Month. That's what we're talking about, and I can assure you that we haven't gotten off topic. We are talking about being present. We are talking about the importance of your emotional and psychological well-being. When we define mental health, we are simply talking about the way an individual, the way you or I cope with our feelings and our thoughts. It's just that simple. You know, the idea of mental health often seems so lofty, because it's the circles that these sorts of things are discussed in are on college campuses and universities, and you're thinking about somebody like me with some glasses and maybe a pocket protector somewhere talking about it. But really, like my brothers have been saying, like mental health is a part of your everyday life, whether you are aware of it or not. And so we are taking the challenge today as the first episode of the Brothers in Influence podcast during the Mental Health Awareness Month to help expand your awareness and hopefully challenge you to begin to grow in this area in understanding as well as self-leadership. Mm-hmm. And so we're talking about being present, and we're talking about communicating. We're talking about how your body language is important. There's also another factor to this, and it kind of goes by different. I use a different phrase, but the whole idea is the same. It's called mindfulness. So while you're being present with an individual or someone close to you, or regardless, if I'm being present, Lorenzo, Shantae, we're being present right now on this podcast. We are purposefully removing distractions, and we're here with you guys right now. And oftentimes, what really helps you to manage your mental health is being present with yourself. Good. So that's what I'm calling we're calling it mindfulness. I mean, I didn't make up the definition, but that was my segue. I hope it was good.
It's perfect.
Yeah, I think that's an important component about being present, because a lot of times when people we talked about earlier, when that episode happens where it's like, man, what happened to Shantae? He just blew up, man. He's not like that, And I think being present with people is important, and recognize what being present is. Because too often people look back and say, oh, you know what, I kind of did see. But the more present you are with people, not just communicating with them, not just calling and saying, hey, hi, what you doing, but actively engaging them. Like we say, you good, bro? It ain't just saying, oh yeah, I'm good. One of the brothers, he been said he had been thinking about me. He had send me a text. Hey bro, how you doing? I'd be like, man, I'm good. He like, nah, I've been thinking about you. How you doing? He's engaging me. It ain't just you good, bro.
Right.
How you doing?
Right.
What's going on with you? Let's be more specific. And that's how we need to be with one another, with those we say we love, that we care for, so that we can recognize those things. Sometimes we joke with people, man, you need to go talk to somebody. And it's like that have and have is a joke, but it's for real. No, we need to be real with people. Hey, right. Man, I love you, man. I really care for you. I think maybe you need to, go talk to somebody. And once again, but if we don't have that understanding about what it is and what it isn't, a lot of times a person gets offended. It's like, man, you crazy, man. I don't need to talk to nobody. But it's not about that extreme. It's just about you. It's about, what do we say, the way an individual copes with his feelings and thoughts. And oftentimes when you aren't brought up in that type of environment, things happen. You don't know how to deal with them. You just, what did we say? You bury stuff, or you deal with them with spending money. You deal with them with drugs. You deal with them with drinking. Not that drinking is necessarily bad. However, but if you're drinking to drown out your sorrows, that's where the problem arises, because now you're unhealthily drinking, you're getting drunk, or whatever it is. Now, I'm not jumping on people who drink. Just an example, everybody.
Everything in moderation is good.
Moderation. So yeah, so that present thing, and I brought it up because maybe we need to just, tap on it a little bit, maybe give a little advice on what it is to be present. And like Ian said, he turns around, focuses on his wife, looks her in the eye, squares his shoulder. I'm here. That says I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I want to touch back on mindfulness just real quick. And we can kind of work our way back to being present, because mindfulness deals with you as an individual, right? And I'm gonna be very candid. I think that our community and the audience that we're speaking to, which is brothers, Black men, this is something that we need. This is something that is essential to our survival and our ability to thrive going forward.
Yeah,
because what we have, we a huge part of our legacy, as a people, as men, is trauma. And when we talk about mental health, a lot of the ways that many of us cope with that, with the realities that we face in society, in our families, in our home life, is that we avoid it. And I'll tell you right now. So you don't need to go to the psych ward or anything. But if you've been avoiding your stuff, it's not healthy. And it might seem okay, but it's not healthy. And I'll say that because I can say it from experience. I'm an adopted individual. I was blessed to be adopted by a beautiful, loving family who raised me in the faith. They know the Lord, love the Lord, and thankfully, I got to taste and see for myself. So it's a personal relationship now. But trauma, okay, being adopted, trauma. Separated from my mother, trauma. My parents, they've been through some stuff, abuse, disease, all sorts. My father, who lives with me right now, he was born during the Depression, so he lived through civil rights. So I'm just trying to get real quick, but a lot of us are the way that we deal with it is by not dealing. And what I've said on here a couple of times is that feelings buried alive don't die. They continue to exist, right? And they will work themselves right out of the grave if you're not careful. And really, that's something that you don't have any control over, because you're just living your life trying to forget that they exist. And they're just gonna pop up on you like a Thriller video. I'm telling you. And so when I say mindfulness, and the reason why I want to emphasize that is because I'm really talking about being present with yourself, being in touch with how you feel, right? Because once you start to bury feelings, you start to lose touch, right? You don't know how you feel. I remember when it was just a couple of years ago. I want to first of all thank God, because my dad is pretty much healed of cancer. Wow. I think last time he went and got his diagnosis, he was like 0.002% found. But when it happened, people were like, well, how do you feel? I was like, I don't know how I feel. I don't know how I feel. I mean, he's always been strong. He wasn't always around. I don't know. Maybe if I had lost him, I would know. But I don't know right now. It's not healthy, right? Being in touch with what's going on inside of you emotionally and psychologically, preparing yourself. I wouldn't say preparing yourself, but getting acquainted with what emotions are, right? And because of this experience, this is something that I actually work on with my son. So he can be a little competitive. He's got some fire. He might be an athlete. I don't know. We're gonna see. But when he just says, when he does something, he says, I got angry. I don't let it lie at anger. Okay, I understand you're angry. But what I understand and what I've learned in my own personal journey is that anger is a secondary emotion. Usually there are other emotions that come first. Right. And I hope this helps somebody.
Yes.
Anger is a secondary emotion. It's a reaction to another emotion, whether that's disappointment, sadness, right? And so I say, okay, I understand that you got angry, but what are you feeling right now? And I'm so proud of my 5-year-old son. You know, he told me the other day, he said, I felt disappointed. And I said, I can work with that. I said, sometimes, you know, I could talk to disappointment. Sometimes we're disappointed in life, right? Because if you live out and if you live in anger and you ignore the undergirding emotion, you're just setting yourself to act out in anger. So I'm angry. So you act out in it, you know. And so I'm trying to help him build that up because I've had to build that up in myself, right? I have to be able to, you know, when I'm talking to my wife and I'm upset about something, you know, usually that would translate into some passive aggressive type stuff where I may the cabinet door might get slammed or something like that. But it's because, and I'm like, oh, I'm angry, I'm frustrated. No, I was disappointed. I felt let down. I felt betrayed. I felt whatever that is. And so when I say mindfulness, it's kind of basically why, what, how. Like, what is this emotion that I'm feeling? First of all, identify the emotion. Then why am I feeling the emotion? How did I get here? Right? If you could trace your way back, right, then you can take control. Because until then, the emotions are controlling you.
Wow. If I could, one, really commend and honor you and Shawté for the vulnerability of your shares and not skipping over or being unmindful of anything that has been shared, because there's power and liberation in sharing your testimonies, not only for ourselves but also for the people that are listening. And what you're hearing is men who have done the work, if you will, to be able to get to this point of having the capacity to discuss it. Ian has done the work of therapy and counseling and mindfulness and consideration that he's able to talk about. Shawté is able to talk about. I'm able to talk about some heavy issues with nothing in our space about it because we are clear, for lack of a better term, or working towards that clarity. And we want to say that clarity or that being settled with a situation, some situations we can't go back and change anything, but we can shift how we relate to the thing in front of us. Right. And so for some of you, it might be that your next step is moving into this realm of mindfulness, into this realm of making peace, into this realm of understanding. And to piggyback off of that, because we're talking predominantly to brothers and, oh God, this is going to sound how it sounds, but people of other races and cultures and socioeconomic statuses regularly avail themselves of the resources and help that they need. When I went to high school, I was in a predominantly white school, prep school, college, same thing, liberal arts, small liberal arts school. Almost all of my friends had therapists going back as early as 9th, 10th grade. Kids were going to therapy. The school had extra therapists, right? High performing individuals, coaches, CEOs, people who are in the highest positions, they have coaches. It's like just what it is. They have therapists, because there's no way you can be in charge of or leading or even just functional at a high level without any supports. And so I want to approach it from that perspective, this mindfulness piece, the mental health piece, that it's really us, we're late to the game, that it is an embedded part of other cultures, and some would say why they're able to access success. So if that's helpful to you, like the rich white dude making all the money, got a therapist, has a coach. If that's helpful to anybody also, I'd put that in there as well.
Yeah, it's most definitely mindfulness is like foundational, and we're so inundated with everything. Everything's so fast paced, and there's always something going on. Our phone is dinging, bells whistling, we checking emails, all this different stuff. And so mindfulness is very important. You know, it's simply saying, uh I'm aware of what's happening now,
Right.
outside of the distractions. Very important. Outside of the distractions, that's just it's saying what's going on now, and me being able to take that moment and focus on that moment.
Right.
And a lot of people they miss that.
I
They
got a good example.
go
Sorry,
ahead. You
I
you
want
are
to
good.
keep going, but I just want to say, like, um, being a black man in America, watching black men die on video.
Yep.
Mhm.
I early 2020, watching that Ahmaud Arbery video, I had mindfulness is what helped me navigate, right? Because I was present with myself in watching it, and I said, I cannot continue. I can't do this, and I cannot watch any videos going forward. I might read an article, or just to try and help me understand what's happening, but I can't watch any more black men down video. And
Mhm.
and I think based on the conversation, it's just good to go ahead and define trauma. Um,
Mhm.
it's a deeply disturbing or distressing experience. And what I tell people is that we people are having these sorts of experiences every day, don't even realize it.
Mhm.
Yes. We walk, we live, we breathe in trauma. James Baldwin said to be black and in America and to be slightly conscious is to be in a consistent state of rage. There is no way, God, Jesus, Ian, you fired me up. There's no way we're in these United States of America as black people, as black men. You have trauma in your bones from slavery. I try to be all calm and all of that, but this stuff gets me hyped because this is a system that has put trauma inside of us. So if you've experiencing mental health issues as a black man, a black person in America, it is probably par for the course because this country has been designed. Our people have been through so much, from slavery to Reconstruction to segregation to Jim Crow to even what we're experiencing now. There's no way you don't have trauma even inside of your DNA and in your bones.
Mm.
The memory of your ancestors creates trauma.
Yeah.
So we really have to deal with this. I know.
I mean, absolutely. We go back to grade school. Where does the history of black people begin? With slavery.
So they tell us here in the United States that slavery and the history of black people begins in slavery, but we were kings and queens and the progenitors of history. That the pyramids in Egypt, the great civilizations of the world, that even those from Greece and from Rome went over to Egypt to steal the stuff. People say, well, why does the Sphinx have the nose cut off? Because it was a black nose, and they were redesigning. There was a deliberate, systemic. My grandfather calls it negation, emasculation, and then decimation. There was a deliberate attempt to negate, emasculate, and decimate the black cultures and black races, which were the progenitors of society. So now you get slaves and the lesser than of society. But no, we're the original kings and queens, which is another piece of trauma. How did we get to this place?
Yeah.
Right. So we're already behind the curveball as far as really trying to come to these terms on our own, right?
Mhm.
So, like Shante said, we all need help. We all need help. That's why, and that's exactly why we're having this conversation, and we're going to continue to have these conversations for the remainder of Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yes.
Go ahead, Shante.
So I put a link, and the link is talking about a Harvard study about the brain and distractions, and basically how they took took some students and did like an 8-week mindfulness meditation program, and basically it helped them, turn everything around because they got rid of all the distractions. And part of the the study was dealing with some I forget it, alpha rhythm brain something, but basically it's dealing with how distractions, mess with our focus and things like that. So I put that in the chat just so someone or watching later can check that out, and just it kind of gives you a perspective on what mindfulness, how important mindfulness can be, and how it can help you refocus your efforts on whatever you're doing. So that's why I threw that in there. But yeah, mindfulness is very important. Like I said, it's that ability. Really, that mindfulness can be the difference between success and failure too. Especially when you're talking about doing business, or even if you're talking about doing a nonprofit, whatever that goal is you want to do. Mental health is, it's people that's running companies that's seeing people. And it's not because they're that extreme. They're nuts. They're crazy. They're going to a mental institution. It's about balance in life. If you're running a company and you got, several executives, and then under them they got people, and under them they got people, trying to keep it straight, let alone if you got a family too. Guess what? If you ain't seeing somebody, I think something going on, right? so and you made a good point, Lorenzo, that it is like that with a lot of other cultures. It's something that's talked about. It's something that's realized, and how it isn't that extreme, right? So yeah,
that's good. I mean, I think shout out to all the black and brown folks out here. We're just doing our best. We're trying to take care of our babies, but we can't keep avoiding this conversation.
Yeah, it's the next evolution of where I discern we're probably heading as a people, as a species, even as the days continue. It has to be something that's so important. And mindfulness, I pulled up this article. It's actually a Harvard article as well. Improves physical health, improves mental health, improves all of your senses. And we take mindfulness as being like woo-woo, but you could say mindfulness is prayer. Mindfulness is quieting your mind. Mindfulness could be meditation. Mindfulness is checking in with yourself. And we talked about this in the self-care episode around you making sure you're good before you make sure somebody else is good. So mindfulness is that way that when the plane's going down and the air thing comes down and they say, put the air on yourself first. Yes. Take that deep breath before you speak.
Exactly.
Take the 8-count breath while someone's speaking because you feel yourself getting all tense at what they're saying. Make sure you're breathing. Make sure your mind is centered like what the guys are saying. And then that puts you in a position of strength to be able to help someone else as well.
That's so good. That's so good. Yeah, and I think to a point I think you made earlier, Lorenzo. It's the wealthy folks that often that are getting the help, right? And they're able to maintain and their wealth both physically, financially, mentally, and emotionally because they have that.
Yes,
and there's a lot of there's a bit of I want to say glitz and glam around it because of the way it's portrayed in movies. Everybody's seen the guy laying on the couch with the therapist there with the. That's not what therapy is about.
Good.
I'm gonna tell you, my wife is a licensed clinical social worker, which is the professional designation for therapists, right? Or one of them. There's many, but there's one of them, and so she'd be the first to tell you that's not what therapy is like. And if you actually look at the history of it, you would recognize that almost immediately, because honestly, the social work came out the gutter. It came out the gutter, and it's been around since the 1800s, and it was primarily women led. I mean, almost as recent as the 80s. I mean, it's still not a very male dominated occupation, But as recently as as the 80s, only women were social workers.
Wow.
And they were disrespected. And you know, you can put this on the line of when women started to become independent and work jobs for themselves, make money for themselves. You know, there's a whole thing. There's a conversation around that. But this was one of those jobs. Social work was one of those jobs that they were allowed to have. And in addition to that, it was most of our sisters out of the church.
Wow.
Social work is intimately connected to charitable work. Where did charity start back in the day? The church.
I see that actually, yeah. And in those communal circles and those spaces of healing that get created organically.
Yep.
And then what clinical whatever has done is taken our roots, our tradition, our history, you know, and has made it clinical to what we see today, where other people can now take advantage of it.
Yeah,
that's so powerful. And you're right. It starts in our roots. It starts in our history. It starts in the bush of Africa. It starts with the drumming, the conversation, the person who is wise enough in the community to address the needs of others. And then over time, it gets codified and stolen from us.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that one of the greatest examples of real social service coming out of the church that we've seen was Mother Teresa.
Yes.
And if you look at the history of Mother Teresa, I mean, you know, the Catholic Church is a whole thing. Nothing against that. Mother Teresa was gangster, bro. if you just, I mean, you could just do a simple Google search, read the first couple paragraphs, bro. And I'm bringing her up for a reason, because she had to rally against the establishment in order to do the work that she felt God was calling her to do. Back in the day, Catholic nuns were just meant to stay in the house. That was their servitude. They were to stay. What they committed themselves to was to put themselves away. Mother Teresa said, "How can I do that when they're hungry, sick, dying people out in the streets?"
Mm.
And she went out there and got her hands dirty in the streets. And oftentimes, if you see a picture of her, she looked hungry herself, but she was living out her call.
But she had to be mindful to be able to do it.
Come on now, bro.
She had to practice. She retreated. She had times that allowed her to refuel and recharge to be this public person who delivered for others.
Yes.
And because she did that, she was able to stand in front of presidents and government officials and tell them that they weren't doing enough. Offended them. She offended them, but they didn't have any choice but to listen, because she walked the talk. Look it up.
Yes.
But the history of social work is grimy, man, and it was meant for those of us that needed the help. It's not some highfalutin, you know what I'm saying? That's probably a country term, highfalutin thing. That's only available to the rich folks.
Good.
There are people out here that's making it accessible to the working man that are set aside specifically to help your children work through the things that they're going through, and our children are going through a lot,
big time.
And if you happen to be listening and you feel the burden of that work, and you have brown skin, you black and brown, I want to encourage you, because the market, they need you. We need you.
Yes. Ian, I was going to ask you if you could put a quick plug in. I know there are maybe some networks of Black therapists, Black social workers of color. If there are any of those resources you might be able to provide. I sense somebody catching this might say, you know what? I'm ready for therapy. I'm ready for counseling. I'm ready. I've listened to this workshop, you know what, this podcast, and I'm going to just take a step. You know, why not? I'm going to make the call. My insurance might be able to take care of it, or the rate is affordable enough you can just do it yourself, and go ahead and make the call and connect with someone that you can have conversations with. Or like Ian said, if you're on the other side and feel called to that work If it is the work your soul must have, then this is the time, and you can do it virtually even.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you know what? I actually I would recommend Psychology Today. Just get on Psychology Today, the website. I think you might have seen it as a magazine, but that's probably the largest listing of therapists. And you can specify, right? You can let them know that you're looking for a Black and brown therapist in your area. So I've got a network here locally. I want to give a shout out to Begin to Talk LLC. Our sister out there, Alicia Durrett Johnson. She is a sister that's doing the work, and a matter of fact, she's got an organization called Heart Network that she launched within the last couple of years for healing emotional abuse and racial trauma. And the Heart Network is specifically set up to help Black and brown folk deal with everything that's going on in the world. And it's a foundation that's put in place at no cost to the participant. So she's wanted to remove the barrier so that we can get the help that we need. And that includes licensed clinical social workers, therapists, coaches, even life coaches that are a part of this network that can help you in the areas where you need help.
Awesome. Thank you, Ian, for that. We've typed in the chat, the Heart Network, Psychology Today. If you're on Facebook, if you type in Psychology Today, you can actually go to their site, psychologytoday.com. And Ian and his wife Erlia had a conference earlier in the year, and Sister Alicia was there. She was absolutely amazing. The work that the Heart Network is doing. And so please tap in to these resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another one of my good friends is Dr. Kevin Chapman. He runs an organization called KY Cards, and he specifically works with anxiety disorders. He's excellent as well. Former athlete, star athlete, and but just all around, he's all around brilliant. But ultimately, he focuses on anxiety, and I think that's a good kind of talk about those terms. You know, when people we talk about anxiety today, and it's becoming more and more common, but we almost talk about it like it's something that you can catch, like it's a disease. Like I've got anxiety. They've got anxiety. But when we talk about anxiety, all of us has anxious feelings, right? And just like Shantae said earlier, it's natural. It's a part of your wiring. It's really intimately connected to your fight or flight. If you've never heard of your fight or flight, it's the mechanism in you, and it's unique in each of us, right? Yeah. It's unique in each of us that triggers when you feel threatened.
Yeah.
Right? And and there's a scope, right? As far as how any one of us could respond when we feel threatened. We could some of us feel like we're in a corner and we fight back. We ready to scrap. Others do need to run. We need to fight or flight. Some people freeze when they get caught. It's like a deer in headlights, right? That's that old idiom. Yeah, you ever see a deer caught in headlights and they just stop? You're like, come on, man. Well, you know what? That is actually something that occurs naturally in human beings as well.
Yeah.
And so when we say anxiety, and I can speak to the clinical diagnosis, a person struggling with anxiety, it's not just feeling anxious. It's actually anxiety that impairs you. When I say impairs, it stops you from having a normal functioning life, right? And depression is a lot of the same way. It's not just sadness, but it's sadness that impairs, right? It's the sort of sadness that keeps you from getting out of bed in the morning and opening the blinds, from getting up and taking care of your kids. You're just so depleted. You're so broken down with either sadness or anxiety that you just can't seem to function. Those are the clinical definitions. But that doesn't mean that you can't be sad enough to need to talk to somebody. That doesn't mean that you can't be conflicted and anxious enough to talk to somebody. So I can tell you, I've been in a threatening environment in corporate spaces where I didn't feel safe and I didn't feel like I could trust anybody. I was functioning, I was getting up every day and I was going to work, but I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like I could be 100% myself, right? I didn't know who I could trust. And so that's what we're saying. And so I didn't have anxiety, but I was experiencing anxiousness. And it helped me to talk to someone about it so that I didn't feel like I needed to look over my shoulder or withdraw or not be who I am as an individual, an employee, a husband or father because of the things that I was going through.
Wow.
Awesome, man. I think we had a good one today. But I think just one of the key points, well, we brought up so much, but I think that mindfulness is foundational. I would encourage anybody that wants to start on that journey, and it's simple. You don't have to take 10 minutes and try to little increments. It could be as little as 30 to 60 seconds to get you in the mood of being able to recognize and block out other things, but have you some moments of silence, some moments to be able to meditate on maybe some of the things you want to do. Because like I said earlier, there's so much going on around us, and it's a lot of it is just noise. That's all it is. And that noise, and if you read that Harvard article, it talks about that those distractions, that noise is distractions, and it stops us from living up to our full potential. So that's one thing I would just encourage anyone to jump on that mindfulness journey, and it gets back to that self-awareness, being self-aware of who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And incorporate it into your overall personal growth. Just take a minute, block everything out, and ask yourself where you are, right? How am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling that way? And how did I get here? You can ask yourself those 3 questions, right? Just be present with yourself, which is what we're saying when we're saying being mindful. Ask yourself those 3 questions at any given time. Because the challenge is with the busyness of life and the stressors and all of the things that we're responsible for as husbands, as fathers, whatever roles you play in whatever hats you wear in your life, it's so easy to just get caught up in the busyness that we lose track. But being at home through a quarantine, that's one of the things that might wake you up when your son and your mother and his mother tells you that you feel a little grumpy, and you don't need. And what you mean? I'm grumpy? Nah, I'm not grumpy. Nah, take 60 seconds, champ. What am I feeling? Oh, I am annoyed. Oh yeah, that was I heard this loud noise when I woke up this morning, and I ain't been right since. Whatever.
Yep. That's good.
I'm on the wrong side of the bed, right? And then you can go back to him like, hey, I'm sorry, I was grumpy, and this is why. And they can be like, oh yeah, we understand, we love you, we just wanted to let you know you was out of pocket.
It's good. Gotta have that communication. We want to challenge you. Reach out to somebody, right? Yep. This week, reach out to them and ask them, you good, bruh? Or if that's not your language, hey, are you okay? I wanted to check on you. Are you really okay? And work through some of the frameworks. Ian, if you want to talk more about a process, just for people, if we want to give them an assignment, like reach out to 3 people and just talk to them. What are you thinking?
That's good. Now, one of the things that I've just tried to practice is when people come up on my heart and mind, just reach out. I think that was one of the ways that I coped with quarantine, right?
Yeah.
I'm introverted, but I still love my people, I don't necessarily need the crowd, but I still need my circle. And so, whenever someone comes up on your heart and mind, just simply reach out. That's a part of being mindful as well, like, because they came up on your mind and heart for a reason. Right. And then just follow through. Right. Don't just, when you ask, how are you? Don't just leave it at that. Like, I think Shawte's example was excellent. Just like, how are you really? Like, I was thinking about you. And it just, because we're so used to just saying these things in passing, that we get out of, it's very easy to just kind of be like, oh yeah, I'm all right, and then move on with our day. But really, when we need each other, when we're honest about it, I need you, brothers. When you guys ask me how I'm doing, that I need the challenge to say, okay, sit down for 60 to 90 seconds. Be mindful, right? Figure out where you are, and then honestly share that, because that's the space to do it. And we have very few spaces like that in life, period. So take advantage of them while you have them.
Perfect. The scripture says a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. And so a part of the way we can work through and handle these things is by adding nothing to it that doesn't need to be added. And just being so clear. Guys, I've really enjoyed having this conversation with y'all today. I've been educated and informed. I believe our listening and viewing audience has been educated and informed and challenged to move ahead and take some steps towards where universe, source, God is calling you to.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm just thankful to be able to have this conversation with you guys. Because prior to the Brothers in Influence podcast, I didn't have a space to have these discussions.
Same, yeah, that's good.
I didn't have a space. Real talk. And so I'm grateful for you, brothers, and and we're building community. I want you guys to know that are listening. We're building community. So whether you or someone feel would benefit from these conversations, please encourage them to join us. Tap in. We got things coming up down the road. We want to make ourselves available, connect, and really just minister to each other. Serve each other, help build each other up, sharpen each other as men. And speaking of, I want to give a shout out to our very own leadership locksmith, Sherrod Ledet.
Big love, bro.
We love you, brother. We know you're not feeling well. We pray you get well soon. And thank you. Just a quick thank you and shout out to everybody listening and watching today. We appreciate y'all rocking with us at the Brothers in Influence podcast, where we stand to encourage, inspire, and add value. We hope that you got some value out of our time together. We love y'all. And we hope that you tune in next week at 3:15 as we continue this conversation on National Mental Health Awareness Month. Love y'all.